Just a quick introduction. My name is Dr. Malele Ngalu. I serve with the Oasis Publishing. I'm in charge of our region here in East Africa, as well as our global office for logistics that ensures that our resources reach out to the 35 African countries that we currently serve. But before I go into that, I would just love to tell you a little bit about how Oasis came about. About 30 years ago, our founder, Dr. Ed Elliott, was a missionary into Nigeria, and he realized that there was a need for Christian African resources to be able to reach the people in Nigeria. And so he came up with a distribution network that allowed for him to import Christian resources from the West and be able to distribute them in Nigeria. We were able to do that for the first 12 years of establishing Oasis there. And then he realized that even though now there was access into these materials, they were not contextualized for the people in Nigeria and by large people across Africa. And so in 2010, we came up with an interesting project that enabled about 350 scholars across Africa to come together and look at the new living translation and use that Bible text to contextualize application notes for Africans across Africa. And so we brought together 350 scholars from Swahili-speaking, English-speaking, Francophone Africa, Arabic-speaking Africa to come together over a period of 7 years to be able to just come up with application notes that speak to our context. And that project was really life-transforming because from the 350, 69 of those were women. And this enabled the contextualization of the Africa Study Bible, not only to reflect the thoughts of men, but also what it would mean to apply the Bible here in Africa for women as well. And so in 2017, we were able to launch the Africa Study Bible that is currently available in English, is available in French, and we are currently translating the same into Portuguese. And people ask us, why do we focus on those languages? We believe those three languages are the main languages of instruction across most of the African countries. And we believe that if we translate the Africa Study Bible into the languages of instruction, we are able to reach as many of our pastors as possible. And so post 2018, we had already built a system that would enable many African voices to be able to speak into global themes, but contextualized for Africa. And so many of the initial scholars that were part of this project requested that, given we had already used this system to be able to write the application notes for the Bible, could we extend that to be able to allow African authors to be able to publish books, features, and articles that would speak to thematic areas around leadership, relationship, theology, but contextualized for our people. And so in 2019, we were able to open up the opportunity for African voices across Africa to be able then to publish with us as a publishing house. And over the years, we've been able to put out about 60 titles, 60 different books that are being used in both Anglophone and French-speaking Africa. And to date, we've been able to distribute to more than 35 countries across Africa. And so when we look at traditional publishing, we realize that even when you have the text or the books available, you still need to be able to figure out the logistics on how to reach out to as many people as possible. And so, given that the infrastructure around Africa is not as developed as other places, and of course, we are getting there, but we needed to be able to more or less like not only discuss how do people write better, how do we train them to be able to write better, but also look at opportunities to be able to partner with as many people to be able to distribute into the countries that we currently are in. And so, what we do currently to streamline the process, we discover African authors from across Africa, and then we work with them to be able to develop a book that speaks to those thematic areas, and then work with them to be able to distribute it from our hub here in East Africa, our hub in West Africa, as well as one in South Africa. And so that allows us to reach as many people as possible. And so, even as we do that, we've been able to get into programs that allow us to train pastors because most of our pastors are based in rural communities, serving there and not necessarily having received training in theology. And so, we are using the African Study Bible as text to allow us to reach those communities, train them in the basics of theology, and equip them to be able to reach their communities effectively. One of the most recent projects that we're doing is called the School Bible Project that allows us to work with national governments across Africa to be able to ensure that as many students across the continent have access to a Bible. I know one of the key things that we wanted to tackle today is to say, what is that transition from the normal or the traditional printing communities into various different publishing or digital environments that are currently emerging for authors, not only in Africa, but across the world. But one of the interesting things that we've been able to see is that even though there's the desire for audiobooks, digital materials available on web and in other forums, the print industry is still alive within Africa, and that a lot of the institution, even though there is desire to be able to transition, are still using traditional ways of accessing books as well as accessing materials that allow them to be able to grow in their faith and interact with books. And so that is Oasis. That is what we are doing. We are desiring to be able to embrace as many digital platforms in many ways, but these are still a challenge for most of the constituents and the communities that we serve across Africa. I would love to stop there and hear if there are any questions or comments in relation to the work that we do as Oasis. Thank you.
Malele, let me just ask you a question to begin with.
Yeah.
What do you see as the real challenges to meet this changing global scene? Because you have pockets like Nairobi that some people say is not even part of Kenya.
Yeah.
And then you go up to Marabal, and that's a whole different world in Kenya. And all the people that are, so how do publishers like Oasis look at that challenge, and what are you going to do to make a difference?
Yeah, thank you so much for that question. One of the major challenges when you're thinking about digitalizing our space is that even though there's a bigger penetration of the internet, access to the communities that we serve is still a challenge. Because even though penetration is high, acquiring a phone and being able to buy bundles is still a challenge to many of the pastors and in many of the schools that we serve. And so what we've done as Oasis to be able to tackle that specific challenge is we are partnering with the major telecommunications company here called Safaricom and Airtel to be able to get bundles or to be able to get fair pricing, especially for our ministry partners and the schools that we are partnering with, to ensure that they get it at almost a break-even price point, so that even as the world moves forwards, the rural communities that we serve are not left behind. And so far, we've been able to use this system to reach more than 10,000 pastors. And we are currently working with more than 6,000 schools within East Africa. And we are using that as a pilot to be able to see how do we continue to have that effect with other parts of Africa that may have a different degree in terms of that challenge, but you would find that it's still the same across Africa.
So what kinds of things are you publishing and pushing towards those pastors and leaders with Safaricom and Aircom and those telecom providers? What kinds of tools are you putting out there?
Yeah, our key focus, especially for 2025, is around discipleship. We've realized that we have a lot of young believers that are coming to the faith, and there are not as many resources to disciple them, especially in their first 2 to 3 years of walking with the Lord. And so we're using this digital platform to be able to develop discipleship resources for pastors. We have something we call a pastor's kit that contain all the essential material to allow a pastor to be able to preach, evangelize, and disciple his community in a manner that they are able to truly experience God within their own context. And then we have another set of discipleship materials for school-going children from level 4 to grade 12. And so both of these approaches are being used to ensure that as many people are discipled in the faith within their first 3 years of walking with the Lord.
So what kind of feedback are you getting from the grassroots with those approaches? What are people saying from the
grassroots? One of the things that we're experiencing is that our initial approach has been to translate these materials or make them available in both English and French, and partly in Swahili. But there's a larger push to have these materials translated in the many other languages of the major languages, especially, for example, here in Kenya. And it's interesting because our communities are based on stories, and stories are told best and understood in the local languages. And so we're working with ACTI as well as AEA to be able just to walk through and say, would there be opportunity to partner together, to have individuals to look into how best do we reach to these communities in the languages that they know best. And I'm encouraging the colleagues that are here that this is an area that truly needs to be researched into, because we do not have as much information as we would love to have as a publishing house to really have effective ways of reaching communities that are not necessarily heavily understood in the written language of English and French. And so that could be an area that perhaps we could look into and see how best do we formulate our resources in a manner that first is understood in those languages, but also becomes easier to be able to distribute in the languages that probably most of us are not currently familiar with.
Digital publishing, the 21st century opened up with a lot of opportunities for publication, publishing books, publishing articles, because essentially when you think of publishing, you're thinking of, you have an idea, you want to share that knowledge, you want to have a record of that knowledge, you want to share it, or you want to create change, influence, you're a thought leader, or you want to monetize, for me, personal experience, monetization of ideas is the last thing that I have in mind. And so if you have an idea, you're an author, you're a professor, a teacher, or you have a research, then there are many ways of publishing it. At AGST, almost all our schools have their own journals. AGST, Asia Graduate School of Theology, has its own journal as well. It's the Journal of Asian Mission. Now we have another organization that was set up. It's the Center for Theological Inquiry in Asia, CTIA, and it also launched an aggressive publishing drive where they are encouraging, uh, you know, 10 of the best articles and researches that they will be publishing in the next in this year or so. And all of those materials will even be awarded with some kind of, financial remuneration. So there is publishing all over at HST. Now, the question is, what are those digital platforms for publishing? Because you got traditional publications, publishing houses like Langham. In the Philippines, there are also, you have overseas OMF Publishing, you have CSM, Church Strengthening Ministry. These are all the church-based, church-related publishing companies. Those are traditional publishing. Those are hard copy publishing. But the world has changed a lot with artificial intelligence, and the internet being very pervasive in its influence. Publishing is kind of looking at how is publishing now being done these days, Just recently, the JAM, Journal of Asian Mission, has moved into a digital soft copy format. We used to print, we used to send hard copies, but everything is soft copy now. And then you also have the thing about open access publishing. How is that? How is open access publishing? And so now people are there is this, a the floodgates have opened up for you to publish your materials. My case, my first experience here was academia.edu. Academia.edu is a platform where you create your own account and then you start putting in your articles. And what happens is you're not only putting out articles or researches, your research is becoming open to other researchers and authors and thought leaders, and you begin to engage with other people as well. Now, there's a free account, there's a paid account, right? The paid account allows you to uh, have access to all other materials, and at the same time interact with other scholars. Like if you're writing a book, I've just Chuck mentioned about the book that's coming out with Langham, Oral Bible Translation. That's the working title. It's going to come out towards the end of this year or early next year. But you get to interact with other scholars in that field. You get to access their resources. They get to see you access your resources. They get to credit you for accessing their resources. It's a kind of collaboration and recognition that what you do is recognized by other practitioners and scholars. At the same time, they get to say that, okay, this author in the global South is accessing my materials, which was written from the global North, and that kind of interaction. And it's interesting. Now, it's not only academia.edu. You also have like, I create an account with Script. Okay, you can have a free account, you can have a paid account. I got myself a paid account because what that gave me was access to resources that normally you wouldn't be able to buy in any bookstore here in the Philippines or anywhere else. But these are books that you can access and you can download PDF versions of it, EPUB versions of it, movie versions of it, you know. And it's just amazing for a little amount, a little less than $20, you get an annual subscription of Scrib, and you have access to almost all this, wealth of resources that you want to use as a researcher and as a professor and as a thought leader. So that's one. And then you can put out some of your resources too, and people can see actually your resources. The good thing about this is that if you have a paid account, you get to know who are accessing your materials. You get to know where, in what country, in what institution, and even the names of the people who access your resources, right? They get to communicate with you too, and you get to communicate with them. So there is that recognition and affirmation and collaboration taking place already at that level. This is the way forward when it comes to publishing. Now, let's say, how about ownership of that? There's another platform that provides, it's not available with Scrib and not available with academia, but you go to this website called Figshare, okay? A Figshare, it provides you with, the DOI, and that if they give you a DOI anywhere in the world, they point at that DOI and it takes them to your materials, all right?
Romer,
So,
tell us what is a DOI. Some may not know.
oh, uh, uh, okay.
Sorry.
Yeah. Well, I missed that right away. The
Okay,
DOI
sorry.
is a
Sorry.
direct object identifier. That's what it is. So it's like you get your ISBN, right? But ISBN is just a code, right? It doesn't take you. You get a URL, then your article is traced through your URL, which is an address of your article, right? But the DOI is really the thing that takes the person accessing the DOI. And so let's say you have a dissertation, okay? You publish your dissertation. I just forgot the name of that organization, but you put your dissertation in this repository, right? And they attach a DOI there. You click that DOI, it takes you there, right? So that's Figshare. Now another platform which I also am an account, it's a free account. It's not a paid account. ResearchGate. Okay. You go to ResearchGate, researchgate.net. You create an account, and AGST Philippines has an identifier there. So if you are part of an AGST school and you want to create an account, you put in your name, and then you put the school of affiliation, AGST Philippines, that gives you access to ResearchGate materials. Some will be free, some you have to pay for. But then at the same time, you put in some of your materials there. And again, it gives you a wider audience of your thought, of your ideas, in the internet. So publishing has really changed. Now, the last thing that I would like to share here is, I got my book out on Amazon Kindle self-publishing, Amazon KDP, right? I published it in 2023, just in time for a global conference, which touched on orality, making disciples, all right, orality and neuroscience, right? It's on Amazon KDP. Now, it's free. It has a marketing arm. You can publish it either a soft copy as a Kindle version. You can have a soft copy and a hard copy. They have a marketing, extensive marketing. You can be compensated for that, but I'm not looking for the compensation. But if you're a great author, they will put that. And there are many ways that they will guide you in monetizing your ideas. But I have several colleagues at AGST. They have their books published through Amazon KDP. One is a dean of a seminary, another is a program there, and then they all publish their material at Amazon KDP. Now, to have access to that, you must create an Amazon account. Okay, so create an Amazon account, and once you create an Amazon account, then you will gain access to Amazon KDP and publish your book.